Okay, hello and good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Red Path. We are going to be doing some more paint streaming. The paint streaming series where I was painting Angron over the last couple of weeks seemed to be pretty popular. Lots of people had a good time hanging out. So we are going to probably continue doing that with some different miniatures, different units, all World Eaters goodness, maybe some things that aren't World Eaters. So what we're probably going to be doing from here on in is moving to a semi-regular streaming schedule. So we are going to be streaming most likely twice a week. Right now, I'm thinking that's probably going to be Mondays and Thursdays, so it doesn't clash with any of our other shows. But yeah, we're going to be going through some stuff. We might switch it up depending on the day of the week. So today we're going to be painting Jakhals, and I think later on Thursday we're going to move on to something a little bit more interesting. But in the following weeks we'll continue on this Jakhal Dishonored guy, kind of work through how he's going to go, all that good stuff. So yeah, what I've done is I've modeled up the Dishonored. Now I didn't give him the Skull Masher, I gave him these chainsaw arms because I think they're pretty cool. But yeah, we've primed him, and he is pretty much good to go. So we're going to start painting him pretty soon. Now what we're going to do is a pretty grimdark color scheme for this guy. We're going to be going with lots of interesting kind of pale flesh tones, and then we're going to come in a little bit later with some kind of darker clothes tones, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, it's going to be good. We're going to make him look real spooky, real scary, all the good stuff. So without further ado, let's start painting this guy. So if anyone who's hanging out in chat, hello, good evening, all the good stuff, please let me know if the volume sounds okay, if everything is going well. And yeah, we're going to dive in. So let's get started. Now, unsurprisingly, we are going to start with a base coat of Galvorback Red for this skin tone. Yeah, we are doing Barney Ascendant check for sure. Let me know if everything sounds okay in terms of volumes and all that good stuff. If you can, please, Jack. Thank you very much. But yeah, so we're starting off with a healthy base coat layer of Galvorback Red, your favorite and mine. Volume is primo. Fantastic. Fantastic, fantastic. So we're going to water down this Galvorback Red layer a little bit, but not too much. We're going to keep it semi-thick because it is a base coat layer after all. So just 1 part water to 2 parts paint is what we're going for here. And yeah, let's start basing out this guy. So the reason that I picked the Dishonored to paint for the Jakhals, couple of reasons. Number one, he is a bigger miniature than all the rest of the Jakhals, which makes him a little bit easier to paint on stream. And number two, he has a really fun amount of surface area for skin tones here, which we can really explore in an interesting way, which you know, we won't really be able to look at on power armored models as much. So we are just going to lay this base coat down. Good evening, Brutal Massacre. How are we doing? Jack, you're more of a Barrack Nar Burgundy? That is pretty bespoke. I think for paler skin tones, which is what we're going for with our friend the Dishonored here, it's helpful to start off with a nice purple or red and kind of work up from there. It helps kind of put down a nice amount of blood flow going on under the skin, makes it look a little bit more natural. Oh, hello Mark, you are going to be real pleased to see that I'm painting Jakhals, your favorite and mine. What red is this? Y'all know what red this is. This is Galvorback Red, the best paint in the business. So, for anyone who missed it, at the start of the stream, I was just saying that we're probably going to start moving to a semi-regular streaming schedule from now on. It just makes life a little bit easier for me, and also makes life a little bit easier for you folks that want to consume our content. So what we're going to be moving to is 2 paint streams a week. We're going to do one on Monday evenings and one on Thursday evenings going forward. So for the next few Monday evenings, we're going to be working on this Jakhal Dishonored fella. Just making a nice dark, grimdark even tone all over this guy. And for Thursdays, I have a real special surprise for you all. I've been working on kit bashing up a very spicy Juggernaut Lord who has some big lore implications for my custom warband. So we're going to be painting him on stream over the next couple of Thursdays. So yeah, going forward, the summary is that we're moving to 2 paint streams a week. For now, it's just going to be on YouTube, but most likely we are going to transition over to Twitch at some point soon as well, just because it's a little bit easier to consume streaming content there. So that is the big news from us for now. Yeah, it is a Dishonored without the Skull Smasher. Like, in my current army list, I have some Jakhal squads that don't have the Skull Smasher just because of points. So that is unfortunately what this guy is going to be representing. If you gotta pull 5 points out of somewhere, you pull it out of the Dishonored first, unfortunately. Even though I think the Skull Smasher is freaking awesome for him. But also, you know, for real, I really, really love the chainsaw arms. They just look so cool. And yes, Mark, you can subscribe with Prime on Twitch as well, which is kind of the main reason for us moving to Twitch for streams, or at least streaming on both platforms, because it is a little bit easier for people to support the channel if they want to, which is nice, and it helps us out, which is great, because YouTube is great, but the only real way you can support us through YouTube right now is through Super Chats, which is fine. But if we do it on Twitch, it's just a lot more accessible for streaming. We can do some fun stuff as well once we get big enough, you know, with custom emotes and stuff. We can get all the good emojis from the Discord of my face ported over, which will be nice and fun. That's a little bit down the line. We are working on that in the background at the minute. But for now, you guys have me on YouTube. Yeah, we will be setting up the Twitch stream a little bit in advance, Mark. Right now, I'm still getting settled in with the general streaming procedure, so trying to work on this scheduling thing, like I'm saying. Once I feel a little bit more confident that we're offering a quality kind of show, that's when I'm going to start transitioning things to Twitch. It's just a matter of making sure that I have everything kind of dialed in first, because I still feel like I'm getting the fundamentals of streaming worked out. It doesn't feel 100% natural to me yet. So once I'm confident that we're delivering something worthwhile, that's when we're going to move it to Twitch. Like right now, it's not ramshackle, but well, you know, it is pretty ramshackle. I'll be straight with you. But if I can get some regularity going, yeah, that would be nice. everyone in chat, Jack needs a title for Whack Weekly, so start giving him recommendations. Wait, didn't I give you one? If Jamie beat that Necron game, what did I say? It was something about, oh, wasn't it like My Little Pony destroys the Star Gods or something? Because Jamie's running Invocatus? Brutal Massacre, you were looking to Angron with pale white skin. Would I recommend doing Galvorback Red base? Of course I would recommend doing Galvorback Red as a base. It doesn't matter what you're painting. Galvorback Red is the first paint that goes down over everything. If they made Galvorback Red in a rattle can, I would spray everything with that. But for real, I do think that Galvorback Red is a good base layer for skin tones. So I would probably go with that if you want to paint Angron. Especially on bigger models, you do want to kind of spread out that more natural tonality. So you are going to need things like reds and purples mixed in there to sort of emulate the blood flow that's going on under the skin, which you can do with oil blending in the kind of post-acrylic stage. But you can also help set that tone by putting down early stage colors that you build up from. So in the case of this Dishonored here, we're putting down this purpley red tone in the beginning, and we're going to work our flesh tones up out from this color. But as we kind of work up, what we're going to end up with is something that's sort of tinted to actually end up, you know, having that as the root of their color, which it will just kind of help set the scene, basically. It's hard to describe, but it's like I talked about it in a video before on Berserker Basics about like foundation layers and why they're important. And having a strong colored foundation for your skin tones is what's going to make them stand out from just being the raw skin tone pigment. You know what, hang on a moment, I have some cultists here from my Mortals army that I've been working on. They haven't been washed yet, but they started out with that Galvorback Red layer. So if you can see this guy. So yeah, this guy is not finished, but this is kind of like where the skin tones work up to, if that makes sense. And even though we're going to be starting with something like this, we are going to get to there by the very end of it. Ronan, you were saying you've custom lore for all your guys known as the Blooded who have given all of their blood as a sacrifice to Khorne. How would I do flesh tones without blood and those worm tones? Okay, so, you know everything I literally just said about putting down a strong foundation layer to emulate blood flow? Don't do any of that for starters, that's a really good call. But there's a couple of things you can do. So, if you're trying to achieve something where it's basically like no blood flow going on under the skin, you kind of have to imagine, like, okay, not to be morbid, but if you've ever been to a funeral, if you've ever seen a body or something, right, it's super, super pale, because there's no blood flowing in that body anymore, right? So it's almost like, not quite translucent, but getting there, right? So what you want to do is you want to base coat that out either with a gray or a really, really, really light blue, or a mix of both. If you can get like a bluish gray, I think there's like maybe a Celestian gray or something like that, which is, I know the paint that I would use that existed back in the day was called Space Wolves gray. I don't think that's around anymore. But if you can work a real light bluish gray as your base tone for bloodless skin, that's kind of what you're going to be doing. And you want to work in things like Ideneth Deepkin flesh. You want to work in things like Pallid Witch flesh. They're going to be your main colors. But also it depends on how long you want your guys to, like how old you want your guys to be. Because if enough time is gone, if enough time has passed, they're going to start to rot. Especially without blood flow, like their limbs will get gangrenous and stuff like that. So you could probably start working some green tones in there as well to really kind of emulate the rotting aspect. Oh, excuse me. I have a little bit of a flu at the minute. We're just coming over the second pass on this guy now as well with the Galvorbak Red for those purplish base coats that we're working on. Yeah, I would not recommend looking that stuff up. What you could do is, if you have a Pinterest or anything like that, like Pinterest is what I use for all my referencing. If you just look up like vampire skin tones or zombie skin tones, like that's kind of what you want. Probably more so vampires than zombies. Like vampires are kind of bloodless by nature anyway. You know that real pallid visage that you get for vampires? Like that's kind of what you want to be going for, I think, if you're going for that bloodless look. It's quite a hard one to pull off. But, you know, can be really cool if you get it right. I think blue is going to be your friend if you're going for bloodless. Like, you want them to look cold, you know? Like, blood is warm and gives the impression of warmth. You see someone with rosy cheeks, you know? It's like, oh, they're like a warm person. But pale is kind of associated with cold tones, right? So cold, blue, they're all the things that are going to be your friend in that kind of a scheme. It's quite a difficult one to pull off. So props for being brave enough to try it. But I think it's possible to do. You don't want to give Nurgle any praise? Bruh, I love Nurgle. If there's one thing I love doing, it's painting like gangrenous flesh. Flesh tones in general are really fun to me because you can explore so many different types of tones. Like, it's not just armor where you kind of have a set regime or scheme that you have to abide by. The fantastic thing about working with flesh tones is you can work all sorts of color in and it can generate like really, really interesting outcomes, I think. Especially when you get to the later stages. Oh, you know what's actually awesome? Hang on a second. I'm literally just looking around at my desk at all my mortals which are gathered in front of me. I think I have something, Ronan, that is a pretty good example of what you're looking for. Check out this guy, right? This is a sorcerer dude that I painted a while ago. Now, it might not come through perfectly on camera here, but he's actually got that kind of like bluish skin tone that I was talking about. He was based out in, I believe it was Night Lord's Blue, and we kind of worked our skin tones up from there. So that's kind of what I mean by that bloodless look. And the answer is yes, I do have a million mortals scattered around me of all sorts of different skin tones, textures, various states of disease and decay. So yeah, my desk is covered with mortals right now because they're tons of fun to paint. Mark, I do have a mortals army, as you well know. As you well know. When is it going to be done? It's not really going to be done. It's just like an ongoing project. Like, I feel like I'm adding a mortal squad to my army like at least once a month. It's just like a passive thing that happens in the background when I'm not like actively painting world leaders. I'm just painting mortals because I always have fun ideas of new squads and things like that I want to incorporate into the army. Right now I'm in the process of building what I've called the Witch Hunter squad, which is kind of a squad of overly zealous chaos cultists who are very dedicated to Khorne and very anti-psyker. So they kind of go into battle with this sole intention of hunting down enemy psykers, regardless of how difficult that task is going to be, and taking them out. So most of the time they pretty much all die because at the end of the day they are just, in this case, Jakhals. But, you know, the ones that come back, they get to claim pretty cool skulls. So yeah, that's their whole vibe at the minute. So I've got some pretty fun squads that we're using for that. We're using the Kodor Redemptionists. We're using a bunch of spare bits from the general Kodor set, as well as mixing in all sorts of things from the Ash Waste Nomads and other bits and pieces. So yeah, long story short, the mortals are happening in the background in a big way. But right now I was telling Jack and Jamie today, I got like a real rush of wanting to write my own warband lore again. pretty much like yesterday, like the last couple of days in general, but mostly yesterday. Mainly because of a really cool conversion I'm working on, which we're going to be painting on stream later this week. But yeah, so super motivated to accelerate the lore of my warband again, to the point that we are probably actually bringing my Demon Prince Macro lore to Warhammer Fest later this year instead of bringing Angron. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, so this is pretty much the base skin tone laid out on this guy. He looks super funny right now. He looks like Barney the dinosaur, which is why you can imagine my favorite cultist named Barney got his name, because he had that base skin tone down for many months before I actually got around to painting him again. So we are going to start working in a couple of more skin tones and that sort of thing. But before we do, let me give you guys a little teaser for what we're going to be working on later this week, okay? You know, I'm talking a lot about this conversion, right? I want you guys to check this out because he's curing at the minute. He's got a lot of green stuff on him. But this is the beginning of my Juggerlord conversion, which was a fun and difficult job. And he's not quite there yet. We have a lot of other work to do. But it's a little teaser of some stuff coming later on this week. So, let's get back to this Dishonored. So, we are going to start mixing in some pink tones now. And what we're going to do for that is mix pink horror into our foundation layer. Just a touch. The whole object with skin tones, the goal that we're trying to achieve is a semi-seamless blend between the darkest shadows and the highest highlights. And the only way we're going to do this is by gradually working layer after layer up of mixes. There's almost never raw pigment going down. It's almost always mixes and blends and working a new pigment into the previous layer. So we are working some pink horror into our Galvorback red, which is making a nice kind of pinky mid-tone, which is pretty cool. And we're going to water it down nicely. For all of these layers, we are going to water them down. Not so much that they become a glaze or anything like that, but we are going to water them down significantly so that they go on nice and thin. Mainly because we are going to have quite a few layers. So, and we are going to be working on the same principles that we always do, where we are pulling away from the deepest recesses and trying to move with the muscle tension. That is the objective here, that we're always trying to move in the direction of the musculature. That's what will give us natural looking aesthetics. So for example, on the pectorals, we're going to be pulling to the left or the right, depending on which one we're doing. I'm pulling towards the area where that muscle joins the shoulder. Now, when we get to the actual shoulder muscle here, we're going to start pulling down towards this this point here where it's meeting the bicep. So our paint motions are going to be kind of coming in like this. Super, super light. We're trying to work on what we call like striations in the muscle. And we don't need them to like really pop out, but it's just kind of getting a little bit of directionality going. Now, one thing we're going to do is down by this area here where the skin meets the inorganic metallic textures, we are going to gradually leave that more and more red towards the base where that joint is to simulate old and healed scar tissue. That is going to be one important feature that we try and pull off. Now let's load our brush back up with some more of this layer. Work on the other side of this handsome man's body. What do you think we should call this guy? Like, I'm a big fan of naming random cultists. Like, Barney is an iconic cultist in my army. Some of you may know of his tales, some of you may not, but he's been all around the world, from Vegas to Ireland to everywhere in between. So he's a very important cultist to me. But what do you think we should call this one? You know, I'm a big fan of where he's going already, and I think that this could be a cultist that develops a lot of history. And I think you guys should have a hand in naming him, considering that you're all hanging out with me while we work on painting him. So why don't you let me know in chat what you think he should be named? Kenneth, you think it should be called Phil? It's not bad. I think we want something a little bit more spicy for a name, though. Working on this this neck musculature around here, this is where we kind of got to dial it in a little bit and focus, because you can get a lot of awesome definition here if you just pay attention and leave some of that darker paint in the recess while building up your highlights. Now, it's not going to be super obvious right now, but as we build in more layers, it is going to start to pop out a little bit, and we'll really start to get this tension going in his neck muscles. We also want to kind of leave a little bit of darkness right under this this metallic blindfold here to kind of simulate how tight it's probably over his actual face. Val Crowbag the Red, Mark. That could be a winning name right there. That's fantastic. A man after my own heart. Val Crowbag the Red. I love it. Did you guys know that I like Alvorback Red? I might have mentioned it once or twice. Phil and Barney, to be fair, it's a strong combo there, Kenneth. Strong combo. Lots of fantastic suggestions for the Dishonored right now. Naming conventions are very complicated for cultists, you know. They're all people. They all have a story. Discovering what this guy's story is going to be an adventure that we go on together over this several paint stream experience. I haven't really fully settled on what colors we're going to do as briefs and kind of like fatigues and stuff like that, because we have an interesting option with this guy in the fact that he's got pants, which is, you know, probably a good thing for all of us. But then we also have this cloth here at the back, so we can actually get some nice duality going here. I have some ideas for what we're going to do, but I haven't fully settled on it yet. So I'm going to leave that open to my brain right now, and as the model develops, I think we might get a better idea of the kind of colors that we're going to lay down. I want to say Val for the Juggerlord. Nah, dude. My Juggerlord already has got a... Well, he doesn't have a name. He has a title. I'll probably tell you folks a little bit more about him on Thursday when we're actually focusing on him. I want to give you, all of you who hang out, the full lore dump for, well, maybe not the full lore dump, but a lot of the lore dump on Friday about this Juggerlord and why he's so important to my specific warband, and how he's going to kind of lead what may be the final arc in the story of my warband. I'm not sure. We could be getting close to the very end. The very, very end of Macker lore and his story. I have a feeling the end is drawing close. Hello, Liam Dempsey. Holy shit, dude. Nice to see you in chat. But yeah, we've been having a lot of fun with Angron on the table. It's been great. I'm going to run one more GT with him. But then I think we are going to go back to Makrolor, finish out his story, see if he can actually catch Angron at some point. And if he does, will he be able to kill him? And I'd like to close that kind of story arc out before the end of 9th edition. So it could be Warhammer Fest where we conclude that. Yeah, for sure. I hope they release the Combat Patrol box soon, Greenblood, because it's some super good value. Super, super good value. Like, everything in there is good, you know? All stuff that we want to see. Especially more Jakhals. Jakhals are freaking awesome. So we have this layer put down now, this mix of Galvorbeck Red and Screamer Pink? No, Pink Horror. So we're going to start working a little bit more Pink Horror and actually working closer towards a pink layer. And this is where we're going to sort of get to a little bit more of the natural kind of skin tone coming through. We're moving away from the darker areas and working towards an actual proper skin tone color. And once we get there, we're going to start actually working in skin pigments. So we're going to start with Rakarth's flesh. We're going to see how we feel. We'll probably bring some Pallid Witch flesh into the mix. Around the areas of scar tissue and stuff like that, we're maybe going to toss in a little bit of Idoneth Deepkin or something like that to kind of simulate gangrenous wounds. Lots of fun little things. We are getting there little by little. So we're just going to load our brush up nice and good with plenty of this mid-pink tone mix. And let's start laying this down. So again, we're kind of working in that striation pattern. Let's start on the shoulder up here where we can get a nice clear angle of it. Kind of see we're starting to get some of that tone and shadowing coming through now. This pink is starting to build up quite nicely. And it's indicative of where we're going with this scheme. You know, we're working our way to a skin tone, and it's a slow process. I understand that it's maybe not the most interesting or fascinating thing to watch, this build up of colors, but you know, this is kind of how I work with this stuff. This is how we get to the complex final tones that I have on a bunch of my models, is working gradually up with different mixes and different layers. And it's the sort of thing that you can do certain hacks and cheats to get through it faster, but you know, I'm the kind of guy who likes to take his time with his painting and have fun and be mindful about it along the way. Now we are kind of leaving, see this area down here, we're gonna stay away from that with this layer, because we want that old kind of scar tissue flesh to remain from where this saw blade arm has been bonded to our poor friend Phil, to kind of simulate where that old wound has maybe not fully healed, because I don't think that the World Eaters are renowned for their surgery capacity, unfortunately. And adding little kind of features like that on a miniature, that can be what really brings them to life. You know, it makes things a lot more realistic, where you don't have necessarily a perfect join that's healed over wonderfully. You know, we want to kind of bring some of that raw aspect of the World Eaters into the miniature by doing stuff like that. In the same way that when we're working on his pectoral muscle around here, we're going to kind of stay away from this raised area here where the cabling is actually going straight into his skin, because we want to emphasize the fact that this is a raw, open wound. You like the optimism that Jakhals have old scar tissue, Mark? Yeah, I guess that's true, but I mean, this guy actually genuinely has old scar tissue. If you look at his six-pack and his right pectoral here, there is actually some old raised and healed scar tissue here. Maybe from when he was tossed around the place as a kid and clawed by potentially a flesh hound. Who knows? I'm sure he did not have a fantastic upbringing. You know, on small miniatures like this, we just gotta take our time, gotta chill out and, you know, be a little bit patient with it. Work through the process slowly. We will get around to doing the 8-bound as well at some point. It's just they're not in my list right now, so I don't really want to focus on painting things that aren't in my upcoming tournament list. Mainly because I want to have my things painted on time. And I'm the crazy guy who goes to tournaments without bringing 8-bound. Because I have no brain cells. Yeah, I'm not really vibing the net list, to be honest, Mark. I don't really like the... I have nothing against people who are running the Invocatus build. Like, that's totally chill. It just doesn't really suit my playstyle. And it doesn't really suit the type of list that I get enjoyment out of running. Again, not that there's anything actually wrong with it. Like, it's a really awesome build, and if people are having fun with that, that's brilliant. You know, I'm super stoked for them. But for me, I like to run lists that operate a little bit slower on the board. I don't know why. I just kind of like I like lists that kind of hang out in the game for 5 turns or 4 turns or whatever. So that's kind of why I'm not running Invocatus right now, because it's a very, very fast list that relies on certain criteria to operate at peak efficiency. I know you don't necessarily need first turn with Invocatus to win the game. That's, patently untrue if you think that. But yeah, the thing is, it reminds me a little bit too much of the Warp Talon builds from back in the day. And I wasn't really a big fan of the Warp Talon build. Mark, you'll remember better than anyone, considering you were the pioneer of it. I ran it for a while and kind of shied away from it. Again, not for any reason that I can necessarily put my finger on, other than I just wasn't having that much fun with it. And I don't know, I tend to write lists that, what's the word? I write lists that induce suffering for myself. Lists that are on paper bad and in practice also bad. Because it's fun to kind of make things that are bad try and work. That's like one of my challenges, is like taking something that's, well, I suppose not necessarily bad, but probably not considered the most efficient thing in the game, and trying to make that work. It's kind of part of the reason why I fell in love with playing World Leaders competitively anyway, was the inherent underdog nature of the faction. I'm trying to make that work on the table, but from there, it's kind of looking at units that you might not necessarily run all the time. Like, okay, if we don't bring in Invocatus, what are we bringing instead? And right now I'm having a ton of fun bringing Angron. But like I'm saying, I'm approaching my finish with Angron builds. Then we're going to move on to something else. Right now, my big interest is what is a list that involves Angron and 2 Leviathans. What's that going to do? Can that function? That's what I'm going to be testing most likely at my next GT, which is the end of March. And if that's good, that's great. I will run it for that GT, and I will probably put it away after that. And then for Warhammer Fest, I am going to crack out something really, really freaking cool. I'm pretty much decided on my Warhammer Fest list, regardless of whether or not it's good or bad. It's a list that's very important to the lore junkie in my head. The guy who, has put a lot of time writing lore for his own warband. So we're going to kind of focus on something for that for Warhammer Fest and see how it goes. In a dream world, I'll play against Jack as well, and see how we can develop some lore together. But I think it will be quite difficult to match Jack, because I'll probably be hanging out somewhere on the bottom tables and he will probably be surfing his way to the top, because he's a much better player than me, as recent GT results will show. I've been doing pretty bad with the new codex, and Jamie and Jack have been doing really well, and that's because I'm not actually that good at the game. But let's not tell anyone that. Let's not say it too loud, because while people still think I'm good, that means I still get to make content for everyone, which is lots and lots of fun for me. Although if I punch in too many other bad tournament results, maybe Jack and Jamie will just tell me to stick to the painting desk, which would be fair enough. Greenblood Crusade, you love the concept of the Leviathan Dread? Yeah, he is so cool. He was actually, would you believe, the Leviathan Dreadnought was the very, very first model I actually owned for my World Leaders. I was in final year of college, and I was super, super stressed out about not getting the right results that I needed to get into my Masters, because I was doing not amazing in college. And I told myself, if I could pull it all together, get the grades that I needed to get into my masters, I would treat myself and start collecting an army that I've always wanted to start, which was the World Eaters. And I would do that by purchasing a model that I've always wanted to own, which was a Leviathan Dreadnought. So thankfully I did put the work in, and I got pretty good grades in the end, and I got accepted into the masters that I wanted to do, and I bought a Leviathan Dreadnought and 5 of the Forge World Red Butchers. And they were the first models I ever painted and owned as a World Leader player. And I painted my Leviathan Dreadnought. He was called Kelrand the Awakened was his name. And I thought he was pretty nice. I posted him on Instagram. And I woke up the next day to a notification from Warhammer officials saying that they wanted to share my Leviathan on the official Forge World website. Which, as you can imagine, was the biggest dopamine rush of my life at that point in time. So that was pretty cool. So he was hanging out in Forge World for a while. And since then, even though my painting has gotten a lot better, it seems that GW hasn't noticed me as much, which is a little bit unfortunate. Maybe my painting's gotten worse and I just think it's gotten better. Who knows? Okay, we're kind of getting some of this nice base skin tone down. Barney the dinosaur, or Phil the dinosaur in this case, is starting to come to life a little bit. So, we're going to work in another layer of pink horror. We're going to get to quite a bright pink at this point. And then once that layer is down, we can probably start working in some skin tones. And we are going to start with Rackheart flesh for that. Let me just refresh my water because I've been talking quite a lot. Is everyone having fun in chat, or am I boring the absolute shit out of everyone? Let me know if it's a good stream. I know it's not quite as dramatic or extreme as the Angron painting stream was. This is focusing more on the people, you know, the blood and muscle and tissue of the World Leaders army that keeps it ticking. The Jakhals. Gristle for the mill. And anyone who knows me knows I'm a big fan of that mortal element for any army. It's like my favorite part. Well, maybe not necessarily my favorite part, but a part that I really enjoy. I enjoy the people that decide they're going to give their lives to chaos, and maybe their motivations for why they did that, or the outcomes of throwing their souls in with the chaos gods. It's always really interesting to me to try and portray that in a way that feels representative of the lore and kind of true to the lore as well, because I think it's quite difficult. You're intrigued to see how this dude goes from red to fleshy, Mark? We're potentially going to get there tonight. Like, it's not going to take too much longer before we start actually getting some of those flesh tones in. We are going to get quite a ways into this dude. Now, the one thing that I am going to be doing from now on is for any models that I'm painting on stream, we are actually just going to do the entire process on the stream, right? It might take us a couple of weeks to finish a model, but we are going to, you know, cover everything so that no one misses any part of it. I know it's something that people wanted to see from the Angron painting streams. I needed to paint them in a very short amount of time, so we didn't really necessarily get to do that, but I promise you, for models going forward, we will paint them all on stream. So we are starting to get to the more striated patterns now with this pink layer. So we're getting to quite bright pink, as you can see from here. And again, we're going to kind of stay away from this sewn up scar. Good evening, Freitas. How are you doing, my friends? Glad you could join us. We are painting Jakhals. You picked up a Contemptor as well, Greenblood? Nice. Yeah, Contemptors are awesome. The new plastic Contemptor is an absolute joy to work with as well. I've painted one and I want to paint more, but I have 4, 5 Contemptors? Too many is the answer anyway. Enough that I find it hard to justify getting another one as much as I want it. Yeah, we are painting Mortals for this. So I suppose to just remind anyone or let anyone know that might have missed it who wasn't here at the start, we are moving to a regular schedule for streaming from here on in. So we'll be streaming on Mondays and we'll be streaming on Thursdays. And we will be doing a different model on each day. So over the next couple of Mondays, we're going to be painting this Dishonored guy here. And over the next couple of Thursdays, we are going to be painting a very special conversion that I've built up for a Juggerlord, which is a very important part of my Warband's fluff going forward. So we're going to be painting those two models over the next couple of weeks on a fairly regular streaming schedule, or as regular as I can make it. You know, if things come up, things come up. I do have a life outside of making content for the Red Path, though that may be difficult to believe. But yeah. That's kind of what things are going to be going forward. We are looking at getting a Twitch up and running as well, just to make streaming a little bit easier for me and makes it a little bit easier for people who want to support the channel. They can do so through Twitch, which is a little bit easier than Super Chats for YouTube. But yeah, that's kind of the things that are happening going forward. We are trying to get a little bit more regularity into the content for the channel, just to make it easier to consume and I suppose more scheduled. No life, only TRP? Yeah, it kind of feels like that sometimes, but I really enjoy making content, so I don't really mind. And as long as you folks enjoy the content that I'm putting out, I don't really care about it taking up a lot of my time. I don't really have anything else to do with my time anyway. But yeah, for this Twitch is just kind of easier for streaming in general. There's a lot nicer features, though the whole setup system is a little bit easier. But we will probably continue to stream on YouTube as well. Like I will probably dual stream, which will make it a little bit awkward to keep an eye on the comments. But as I say, I'm working out this whole streaming thing somewhat from scratch, but I think we're getting there. You know, I feel like the quality of the streams has improved over the last little while. And I'm feeling a bit, you know, bolder in terms of things that I can actually accomplish. So yeah, we're working towards bigger and better things. Is the plan. Anyone who might have missed it, you know, we have our Spotify up and running now. That's very exciting. My new series, All Around the World Leaders, is going to be available there as well as on YouTube, and other things that have kind of a more podcasty format. We're going to put up on Spotify as well, because let's face it, it is real nice to consume those kind of podcast based media across listening platforms rather than YouTube, which you have to keep open the whole time. So that is this layer of skin pretty much down. He's looking more pink than red, which is where we started, so that's nice. We are starting to get some tone built up here, which is also nice. So I think it's time start putting in some skin tones. What do you people think as well? Let us begin working some Rakkart's flesh into the mix. How exciting, how fantastic, how absolutely wonderful. So we're going to dot in a little bit of Rakkart's flesh into this high pink tone mix, and we're going to start making this guy look a little bit more human. Now we're going to mix just a touch in for now, to the point where our mix is actually still just going to be a super bright pink, but it will have that underlying kind of human flesh tone in there, which is what we're trying to work our way towards. Again, like I say, it's a gradual build-up of layer upon layer. And we get there slowly, but we get there in the end, and the result is quite pleasing. So let us begin laying that down. I'm going to load up our brush with this almost peachy skin tone, I would say. It's kind of like a pinky, creamy sort of vibe. Alright. And again, we're working on that kind of striation pattern. Things are going to get a little bit harder to kind of work on here. The reason we're starting on the shoulder area is it's the biggest single surface area of skin, which is a good tester to make sure that the mix that we've made up isn't too bright or isn't too dark. It's the easiest to see if it's going to work or not, and it is starting to work nice. We are starting to build up that actual skin tone, we'll say. Even though everything we've been doing so far is still skin tones, we're actually getting towards a skin-based color now. Hello, dog. My dog has just walked in. And now he has just walked out. Goodbye, dog. Oh, hello, dog. What are you doing, Kylo? You wanna come watch me stream? Okay, what have I missed in chat here? TI, you've watched 5 minutes and you've made your mind up that your 2023 project is going to be World Leaders. That is awesome, my friends. That is awesome. I am glad to see that you're joining the 12th. Tons of fun paints, lots of awesome kits. And hey, join the Red Path for lots of other fantastic World Leader content. Green Blood Crusade, yeah. You have knobs on the side and then berserkers on the other. That's a pretty angry combination of models to have out on the desktop. So we're being a little bit more selective here in terms of where we're laying down this skin tone, because we are wanting to retain some of those earlier reddy, purpley, pinky tones that we've put down, because that's where we're going to have some definition, namely like the side here. Like I'm saying, we're getting that kind of older scar tissue coming in from where we've got this join with the chainsaw arm. It's very important to kind of lay down those areas and and it brings life. It breathes life into the model. He's not just some mannequin who's got a skin suit slapped on over him. You know, there's living tissue going on here, and it's reacting to all these things that it's exposed to in different ways. So like scar tissue, we've got tension, we have wounds of different varieties and stuff. And if you can accurately convey that on a model that has a lot of exposed skin, you can really tell a story. Just by looking at the model, you can tell a lot about the things that this certain person has been through, you know, rather than just working a singular tone over the entire model. And that's why we spend our time building up these tones. It's very, very important. But at the end of the day, these are just 7-point models that die to a stiff breeze. So if you don't really want to spend a whole lot of time painting Jakhals, that's totally okay too. But I'm a huge fan of Mortals, so that's why we're spending a little bit more time on these guys, because if I don't give them love, no one will, right? I'm the Mortals guy. Okay, George, you're saying, hey Dara, what are my thoughts on the new sculpts? You haven't been able to get your hands on the World Leader stuff yet, but for the most part, you thought they looked great. Yes, I agree with you. For the most part, they do look great. The Jakhals are my favorite of all the new sculpts. They're super, super grimdark, really fun to put together, and give you lots of incredible spare pieces, which is something I always appreciate. New Berserkers, pretty awesome. Lots of good options in those kits. Very, very easy to kit bash with a variety of different kits and things that are out there, which is really good too. What else do we have? The Juggerlord, fantastic kit. Really, really beautiful. I have been working on converting up my own. If you've just joined, I know, I'm so sorry for anyone that I'm repeating from what I said earlier in the stream, but I've been converting a Juggerlord these past couple of days. We're going to be painting him on stream on Thursday, so that's going to be awesome. He is going to be the banner bearer for my legion, for my warband. He is going to be called the Firekeeper, and he is a very, very exciting miniature. The base Juggerlord is awesome, but what the work that I've done on that guy, he is looking pretty sweet, to be honest. I think he's going to be quite a nice conversion when he's finished. So I really like him. Angron is a fantastic model. We painted him on stream over the last couple of weeks. Finished my first Angron. He came out quite nice, I think. So we'll be selling him pretty soon and working on my second Angron, which I'm going to do a little bit of conversion work for, because, well, the sculpt is brilliant and really fun. I can think of some ways that I would like to improve it to my own taste. So we're going to be doing that at some point in the future. The only kit that I didn't like was the 8-bounds. Wasn't really a big fan of them, to be honest. So I did a little bit of conversion work. And I've made some what I consider to be nicer looking 8-bounds. It's very, very light conversions. I would have liked to do a little bit more, but I didn't exactly have the time or the patience to work on them. You know what, let me just grab one of those 8-bound and I'll show you folks. They are right up here. So this is kind of one of the conversions that I did for my 8-bound, which was very simple. We gave him an extra shoulder pad, which I think bulks him out a little bit more. The weapons don't look so top heavy. And yeah, I gave him a possessed arm as well. So we did some stuff and they look a little bit better. But I'm still just not a big fan of that kit in general. Everything else though, super enjoyed it. So, Mr. Tumnus, you got your Jakhals on the desk. Yeah, they are quite fiddly, but they are super nice once they get all put together, because the detail on those sculpts is phenomenal for cultists. And they are actually pretty big. I was surprised at how much bigger they were compared to normal cultists. But I'm all about that life. I like to get that detail going, which is what we're doing for this big boy Dishonored, who comes on a mighty 40mm base, which is wicked cool. What else have I missed in chat? Always streaming when you got stuff on. Sorry, Freitas. We are moving to that regular schedule now, so it's going to be Mondays and Thursdays. Then on Wednesdays, Jack's going to have his Whack Weekly out, the wrap up of the current meta perspective of world leaders and how they're doing in the tournament. This week's going to be awesome. We're going to touch on Jamie's results from Kagbash, which he did very well at. So that'll be Wednesdays. Fridays is going to be all around the world leaders from me, so the show where I talk to various different people from around the world about their experiences with world leaders, and generally it's not just going to be world leaders, right? We're going to cover lots of different things as time goes on. We actually have a very fun episode coming out this Friday about... Well, I'll leave that one for a surprise. It's going to be good. It's going to be good. So yeah, we're moving to a little bit more regularity, which is nice. The people like when the shows are on at set times. Promises to be another really interesting Whack Weekly from Jack this week as well. There's another huge amount of results coming in from the world leaders. Greenblood, you are working on wrestling with getting your power armor bright so it reads on the table but not looking like Blood Angels. What you want to do for that is you want to brighten your trim. If you brighten the trim, it'll serve as a frame for those reds, regardless of how bright or dark those reds are. And it will pull the eye toward the reds naturally. So even though you can do a mid-red or you can do a semi-dark red, if you have quite a bright trim, so what I would do is like a mix of Retributor armor and Canoptic Alloy, that will naturally draw the eye towards the darker shades of red if you don't want to brighten them up to Blood Angels red levels. That would be my recommendation. But at some point in the hopefully not too distant future, we will be painting the 40k scheme on stream, so I can show you folks my plan for that. Even though I don't paint the 40k stream myself, I'm still going to do a couple of Berserkers in that scheme. I might do 5 and then maybe auction off the squad or something like that, because I will have no use for them and I'm sure someone else would rather have them. But yeah, so we will mess around with those on stream at a point in the future, maybe when I'm not stressed out about painting things for tournaments, which is what I'm doing right now. Stress painting the Dishonored. The best way to paint. He's starting to, you know, we're getting a little bit of life in this guy. He's coming out. He is coming out. Freydis, every 2 weeks you play games with a friend who doesn't really get to interact with otherwise on Thursdays. Oh, okay, fair enough. Yeah, that's why I can't join on Thursdays. You know what? That's okay. That's okay. You can always catch the VODs. They are always available afterwards if you miss the stream. I would not deprive anyone of such things. So what we're going to do now, we're going to mix a little bit more Rakarth flesh into our kind of fleshy, pinky mix here. We're going to start brightening it up towards another skin tone level. Getting some water to hydrate my throat because I seem to be doing a lot of talking tonight, which is good. I love the interaction. I love the company. Hanging out while painting. It's all great. For anyone who is watching the stream and isn't already, join our Discord. There's a link in the description. You need to be in there. You need to be talking to people, getting the ideas flowing. We got a continuous conversation going on and it's freaking awesome. Freydis is in there, Mark's in there, the whole gang is hanging out all the time, spitting ideas at each other, telling me why I am stupid, why I am wrong, and why my next tournament list is going to be the worst thing to ever happen to the world leaders. So get in the Discord if you want to support the channel. Hop in there, give us a like, subscribe, do all the good stuff, whatever. You know how it goes. You can super chat us if you really love us as well. Mr. Tumnus, you're painting along with the stream. I'm going to stick some pics in the Red Pat Discord. Hell yeah, brother. Make sure you tag me up so I can see those. You went with black trim. Oh, wait, hang on. Have you posted those guys before? I'm pretty sure I've seen your guys, Mr. Tumnus, with the black trim. If it's the ones that you've already posted, those guys are tight as hell. Freaking love those black trim berserkers. We float things like avocado toast. Yeah, for anyone who doesn't know, avocado toast is the working title that we've come up with for the build, which is Lord Avocado, and 2 Contemptors with Double Fists and Flamers. Not saying it's good, but it's something that the Red Path has conjured up. Once again, we are innovating. We are at the cutting edge of, maybe not the meta, we're at the cutting edge of something anyway. So it's getting a little bit tougher to kind of get these skin blends on now. It's getting a little bit streakier as we're working more of this heavy pigment in. So we are going to have to kind of focus in a little bit more on actually dialing in this paint layer. So we're going to let that part dry just for a little bit while we kind of go back and work in, but we are starting to build up those skin tones now. Again, we're leaving specific areas in shadow where we can kind of get that nice sort of texture, that nice shading and blood flow going. Especially around this open wound in his shoulder here, you can see we're kind of working away from that open area so we can kind of emulate the stitching, the inflammation all around that area. It's about kind of, you know, understanding how wounds and pressure and different things operate on skin tones and how that would change the color of them. Which is a little bit disgusting, but when you're a scientist like me, a lot of those things you kind of just have to live with anyway. But it does help when it gets to painting. You understand how certain things are going to work. You're painting a Khorne Viscerator this evening. Nice, Freitas. Those are some baller looking dudes. I have 2 of those on my desk as well. Okay, so we are kind of getting there with this skin tone now. It might still appear pink to you, but when we take a moment to kind of step back and survey what we've done, we are actually working closer and closer towards that actual human pale kind of skin tone. We are getting a lot of these foundation layers down, and we are starting to visualize our objective. We are getting close to something that we can kind of say is matching our initial sort of idea. So we are going to continue to work just a little bit more Rakarth flesh in here, and really start to kind of push this skin tone now. Now we're getting kind of close to the point where we're going to want to start brightening this up as well with some different tones, and this is where you can really start to decide the theme of your skin tone. You know, you can further push certain aspects of it if you want it to look pallid, if you want it to look gangrenous, infected, diseased, whatever. You want to start kind of mixing those tones in now. I think for this guy we are going to try and bring that anger out, the sort of rage inside the Dishonored. So we are going to kind of stick with our reds, our purples, our pinks. So we're going to keep kind of building up on the layers that we've already established here and work towards a nice final value. So we are going to start messing around with a finer brush now. So we're moving down to a small brush, and we are going to start building up the next layer. So let's get into it. Trevor, you wanted to say thank you for the Angron painting videos and that I helped you a lot in establishing your own tone for the bronze. It's freaking awesome. That is freaking awesome, Trevor. I am super glad that I was able to help. Imparting any form of knowledge or skill or tips is kind of the point of these painting streams, other than just hanging out with the community and having a good time. So I am really, really glad that you enjoyed them. Hopefully you might be able to get something else from this and the upcoming streams. What else do we have here? Mr. Tumnus, am I going to be doing some oil washes on these? Yes, I am. I am absolutely going to be doing some oil washes. For the skin, we're going to go with something reddy purple. And then for the clothing, it depends on what color we end up going with for the clothes, but more than likely we're going to go with a browny black oil wash for that. Something a little bit standard, and then the skin tone you want to match an oil wash that kind of matches the underlying tone, which for us is that reddish purple hue. Pardo, you just woke up from a nap. What is up, my friend? Haven't seen you in a while. Good to see that you have joined the stream. Happy to have you hanging out. But yeah, it is worth it, the oil wash for the humans. I might have some mortals on my shelf that I've already oil washed, so I can show you the difference. Let me just finish putting down this segment. Thing that an oil wash is going to do on these mortals is that for some of these layers which are a little bit choppy, we'll pull them all together nicely and unify them. And we can further push that with an oil blend if we want to, which I think I might do just because the Dishonored is a big kind of, not quite centerpiece model, but he's a showy model. You want him to look good. And I always have a soft spot for doing the mortals a little bit fancier than they actually deserve, so I'll probably spend a little bit of time showing off some techniques on this bad boy just because he's a really awesome sculpt as well, and it would be a shame not to push him to the fullest extent that we can. I hate to leave a model at a stage where I know there's more I can do with it. Really bugs me. How big is he compared to the regular Jakhal? Uno momento. Here's a regular Jakhal. Here's the Dishonored. So he's pretty big. I think he's maybe a little bit smaller than an Ogre. It's on a 40mm base though. He's about the same size as a Space Marine. Has descriptions from the new lore affected my designs going forward? In a sense, yes. Like, at the end of the day, my own warband is still my own lore. And it's not so much that the new stuff has changed how I view my own lore or how I'm going to be painting my warband. It's more that it's slightly altered some of the themes and maybe motivations or availability of certain miniatures in my warband. Like these, the Jakhals certainly slot into the theme of my warband quite nicely. Obviously models like Angron do not, because the whole goal for my Demon Prince is to hunt down and kill Angron. So, you know, it doesn't really make sense that he can run in the same battlefield as Angron. So we're working that out as we get towards some sort of lore conclusion. But yeah, one of the things that has massively informed a change is, well, not necessarily a change, but a new character in part of my warband is the Juggernaut Lord. I'm currently working on a conversion, which we'll be painting on stream later this week. of the standard bearer from my legion, the Jakhals, a character known only as the Firekeeper, which, if anyone is fans of Dark Souls or knows anything about my painting history, will enjoy that cheeky little reference. So yeah, in a sense, the new sculpts, the new lore has somewhat inspired me to accelerate my own lore in an interesting and motivational way, I suppose. Yeah, I'm feeling the vibe. It mostly does a lot to influence the type of lists that I write, rather than necessarily the miniatures that I'm purchasing. I'm always trying to think, how can I justify this within my own warband? So a quick observation here of this blend coming up. It's quite nice and kind of subtly tells a little bit of a story about the wound of having a chainsaw arm grafted onto your body. Just little things like that, you know, it's about telling the story of the miniatures as we paint them. That's why ultimately it's quite rewarding to spend more time working up things like skin tones, because you can tell those stories through injuries, through scar tissue, and a host of other fun techniques. Certainly getting to an interesting place with this guy. I'm just going to quickly refresh my water, but I will be back in a moment. We're going to start working in some pallid witch flesh into our skin tones now. So back in just a minute, folks. Alright, we have returned. Have I missed anything interesting in chat? Justifying the sudden Juggerlord has been hard for you, Freitas. I get that. So, the way that I did it was... This is obviously very personal, kind of taking the whole thing, right? But, so standard bearers, Jakhals, people who hold the symbol or flag of a warband, they're very important to me. They tell a lot of story about... you know, a warband, its history, what it stands for, etc, etc. Alright? So I've always really loved standard bearers as a concept. I've tried to work them into my army as much as possible, even though I'm not necessarily that good at painting freehand. It's something that I've always tried to improve, but haven't really sat down with and kind of taken the time that I should have to actually improve it. So I had a standard bearer for my legion, for my warband, and that was fine. I never really fielded him on the table because I was never really that happy with him, but I had lore in my head about what he stood for and all this stuff. And when the Juggerlord came out, I said to myself, well, you know what? Guy on horseback is usually the guy who holds the banner because he rises above all the other soldiers and stuff like that, so I'm going to try and replicate that. So I went on this big lore story about how my standard bearer, the Firekeeper, is, you know, he goes and he retrieves a Juggerlord or a Juggernaut from the warp, and he rides it into battle and he holds it above everyone else, and he's like, this is the standard of the Cinder Host, this is the standard representing Macrolore and all his struggles and everything that he stands for. So I've been working on that miniature. I'm going to give you another, I showed it off a little bit earlier in the stream, but probably not a lot of people were here back then. But this is where he's at right now. We got some green stuff drying. We've done quite a lot of conversion work on this guy, but he is going to be holding the standard of the warband. That was my way of justifying the sudden inclusion of a Juggerlord. So, you know, It's not necessarily going to work for everyone, but it works for me, and everyone can kind of come up with their own way of justifying the sudden inclusion of a new unit that wasn't there before. That's kind of how I view it. Anyway, we have worked some pallid witch flesh into our lair, and now we are working on putting in some proper tones on this guy, some proper skin tones. So it's going to start getting bright now, so we're going to kind of focus away from those shadowed areas. We're going to start making sure that we are hitting the high points only. Thank you, folks. I am pretty pleased with how the conversion is coming out. We're probably going to start painting that guy on Thursday on the stream. Potentially him anyway. Or maybe we'll work a little bit more on the Dishonored. I think we are going to try and separate the streams during the week with different models just to keep things interesting. You know, we'll do the Dishonored on Monday, and we'll do probably the Juggerlord on Thursdays. It might be something else. I haven't fully decided on the Thursday model. If you guys want to see anything in particular for the Thursday model, do let me know in the chat. If there's anything that, you know, really kind of jumps out at you, is like, I want to see Dara paint that new model or whatever. Let me know and I'll see what I can do. I have pretty much everything from the new releases. So if there's anything that you really want me to paint, let me know and we can do that for Thursday. I like that lore justification for your Juggerlord, Freitas. That's pretty cool. So I mean, you can work it in whatever way suits you. It just has to suit you, and who cares if people have a problem with it? It's your lore. Everyone tells their stories in different ways. I would like to do the Juggerlord on Thursday, mainly because I like the idea of doing a custom piece on the Thursdays, something that ties into my own lore, so I can kind of talk about the stories during the stream, and we'll give something to listen to for the people who are watching. Where am I sourcing the banner itself? So what I have is I've made a banner pull from a brass rod and some other little bits and pieces. And then I have an Ogre Maw Tribes banner, which is quite a nice one. So we're going to be using that as the actual surface area. The body of the rider is from the Mark II Horus Heresy kit for the World Leaders, I want to say. It's a currently out of production kit, unfortunately. So I'm very sparingly using the bodies that I have. Yeah, I'm not posting my lore stuff in the Red Path yet, Freitas. There's some background stuff going on about the actual way of introducing that lore in a more interesting format, which, you know, will come to the channel at some point. How have I gotten through the dilemma of writing your losses without killing off your characters after every battle? A lot of the time you can justify it by kind of saying they were like mortally wounded and dragged away, or whatever. Sometimes you kind of work the deaths into the story a little bit, like the ascension of Macro lore from Chaos Lord to Demon Prince was a very, very big deal in my apartment with me and my roommates, where we kind of wrote like not quite a narrative campaign, but a lot of the battles, the practice games that we were having was kind of feeding into the lore, especially into my buddy Rory and his Blood Angels. We really wrote a massive narrative about how he was always fighting Captain Lavrentios of the Death Company. And then when I was going to tournaments, it was kind of specific campaigns. Each tournament was a campaign for my warband. Like, they're going to different systems, and depending on how they did, it informed a lot of the lore. So when I went on a bit of a losing streak at one point in early 9th edition, I used that as a way to accelerate my lore. So what I did was I'd been doing kind of bad, and Macro lore had been leading a lot of those tournament lists. So what I had was I had the overall leader of the Cinder host, Marakost, arrive, and he was kind of berating Macro lore, and he was sort of like, look, you have one more chance to pull it together for the warband, and basically kind of stop being bad. So he went to one more tournament and he didn't do very well. So Macro lore was ordered to decimate his legion. So 1 in every 10 has to die. And Macro lore was not about that life. So he split from the original host of Char and Cinder, and he formed the Cinder host, which is his own miniature warband that has broken away from Marakost, who wanted to reunite with Angron. Macro lore was just not happy with any of that. He wasn't happy with decimating his ranks. He said he'd been through enough, so he broke away. And ever since he broke away, he's been slowly falling to demonhood, even though that's the last thing that he wants. It's kind of one of those things that it's sort of like Mortarian's story, where everything he does to deny it is sort of furthering him along the path, and that was happening. And his Dark Apostle, Kem Gregor, was slowly making pacts with demons and stuff, and gradually Marakost's or Macro lore's chosen were falling to possession. More and more of them were becoming possessed, and they were going to Kem Gregor to seek assistance, with the demons that were speaking to them. And while it seemed like he was helping them, he was actually furthering along the demonhood for a lot of these guys. So gradually the Cinder host was becoming more and more demonic, as were their followers and all this other stuff. And Macro lore at this point was fully focused on this ambition of his to take down Angron, to get revenge for all the terrible things that he had done to their legion, for the state of the legion being the way it was, and all these things. He just hated Angron so much for what he did, and he was kind of almost blinded to the changes that were happening to his own warband, that despite everything he hated about Angron, he was kind of inflicting the same curse in a different way on his own guys. So over time, Kem Gregor, he was kind of corrupting Macro lore more and more and more, and it was getting worse and worse. So then we get to the point where we have a very, very big battle. I'm playing my buddy Kian, he's playing his Eldar, and what we have is Macro lore kills the Seer Council, and in the bones of all these dead Farseers and Warlocks, Kem Gregor conducts this ritual which effectively kills Macro lore, but it sends him to the warp. It sends him to the palace of a being that Kem Gregor has been speaking to, called the Pale Tyrants. Now the Pale Tyrants, it's a bloodthirster that I own. This bloodthirster hates Angron because he's kind of trespassing on his territory in the warp. So Marakost gets transported there, Macro lore gets transported there. Marakost is long gone at this point, and he's facing the Pale Tyrant in his courtroom, and the Pale Tyrant says to him, you want to kill Angron, you want to get revenge for your whole legion, all this stuff. And Macro lore is kind of like, yeah, of course I do. He ruined my legion, he ruined all of their lives. And the Pale Tyrant says, you know, I want to kill Angron as well. I want him gone because he's trespassing on my territory. He's trying to usurp my domain in the realm of Khorne. And he says, I want you to be my mortal weapon. I want you to be the hunter in my name that goes down and chases Angron and kills him. But the choice is this. Pale Tyrant offers Makrolor two choices. He says, you can say no. You can say no and you can go back to the world, and I will rid you of the pain of the butcher's nails. I will take them away. But you will have to live with everything that your warband has become without the butcher's nails clouding your vision, clouding your judgment. You'll have to live with that. Or I can make you strong enough to fight Angron. But to do so, you will have to accept something that is going to forever blind you and change you. And you will become basically a completely different person. You will lose all sense of self. You will be blinded to everything but the need to hunt down Angron. And Makrolor, he accepts. He says, that's what I want to do. It doesn't matter what happens to me. All that matters is that I kill Angron to avenge all my brothers who have fallen over the years since the Horus Heresy. So the Pale Tyrant says, okay. You have to wear something called the Butcher's Crown, which is like an extreme version of the Butcher's Nails. It fully covers his face. For anyone who hasn't seen my demon prints or my profile picture on most things, it is Makrolor with the Butcher's Crown on. And he gives him an axe. And the axe is called Angel Slayer. The axe is forged in the blood of all the blood angels that he has slain to get to the point that he has to make this offering. But it's also a double-edged meaning because the axe was also made to slay the Red Angel. So he has this axe called Angel Slayer, he has the Butcher's Crown, and he has a shield to protect himself against Angron. And he is sent back to the mortal realm. He's sent back to the battlefield where Kem Gregor basically conducted this ritual. And he is reborn in fire and blood, and he is essentially like a phoenix. He rises from the ashes as this demon prince, and now he is just hell-bent on chasing down Angron, on killing the Primarch, and as he does so, as he goes further and further to demonic extremes to chase Angron, to track him down, more and more of his warband is falling truly to chaos and becoming possessed, becoming corrupted, degenerating into spawn, all these other terrible things, including the mortal followers as well. Which is kind of my justification for why some of the Jakhals are as big as they are compared to the previous mortals that were in the army. So the army's degenerating all around him, and it's kind of the nature of chaos, right? Is that he thinks that he's doing what he needs to do to get revenge for the Legion, to track down and kill Angron and bring him to justice, essentially. But Makrolor doesn't really see that he's doing the exact same thing that Angron did to the Legion. He's just doing it on a more concentrated scale to his own warband, who will still follow him no matter what he does or what he says. They will follow him no matter what. But he is damning them all on this path, and he does not see that because he is blinded by the Butcher's Crown. So that was a fun little 10-minute snippet of my lore and kind of where it is at in the current scheme of things, and how the new codex has altered it, how it has kind of shaped it, and how I kind of use losses and different tournament situations to justify and change and accelerate my lore. So Green Blood Crusade, I hope that not quite succinctly answers your question, but answers it nonetheless. Yeah, I use the Cinder host and the host of Char and Cinder. So it's confusing because the names are so similar, but they're meant to be because they were a splinter group. When I want to use Angron, when I want to use Moracost, I will use the host of Char and Cinder. And then the Cinder host is Macrolora's Warband, which has split off and kind of become its own thing. So depending on what way I'm loading out a specific list, I will pick those characters. I will pick the units that are generally associated with them, which... Like, it's really stupid because when it comes to tournaments, I sort of impose my own restrictions on myself in terms of who I can actually include in lists. Like, I will obviously never run Macrolore and Angron alongside each other because that doesn't make any sense. But that's just kind of how I like to operate. I like to put those restrictions on myself, even though it's kind of like, you know, making things a little bit more difficult. I don't really mind because it's still telling my own story in an interesting way. And it's just the medium by which I do tell the story of my warband, which, like, I'm not telling it to anyone else. Apart from, obviously, I'm telling it to you folks now, but yeah, it matters to me. Do I have a depiction of the leader of Char and Cinder? Yeah, I do. It's, I'm not sure if you've seen it, Freitas. You know my converted Abaddon? He is converted to be a world leader. That is the current Moracost, who is the leader of the overall warband, who has rejoined Angron. So anytime I want to run Angron, it's generally alongside the host of Char and Cinder, who is running with him. Because they're the guys who went back to him. Kind of went back to seek his embrace, so to speak. I hope that wasn't too boring. There was a lot of lore in a short space of time while we were painting this fun little Dishonored man. Maybe on Thursday I can tell you guys the story of the Firekeeper, which is the model that I will probably be painting. The Herald for Macrolore. Okay, I think we're kind of there at the minute with the skin tones for the acrylics. This is sort of what we're looking at, which is super pale, but we have lots of red and purpley tones to kind of add volume and all that. It's a little bit garish right now, it's a little bit stark in terms of the highlights, but that's okay because an oil wash later on is going to blend all that together and make it look a little bit nicer, which is perfectly fine. We're going to get to that when we get to it. But I think we are going to call it probably about now. We've been streaming for nearly 2 hours, so that's quite a little bit of time. So we are going to be back on Thursday with a new stream, fresh stream, going to be fun. We're going to work on the Firekeeper for my Legion, and then next Monday we're going to keep working on the Dishonored. So if you haven't already, you know, subscribe to the channel, all the good stuff, join the Discord. You can support us with super chats or Patreon or whatever other way, as you see fit. But yeah, thanks for hanging out, folks. It was a real fun evening talking lore and all the good stuff. I hope you had a fun time on the stream. If you did, let me know in the comments down below. Let me know in the Discord. Tell me what you want to see different, if there's any improvements that you can think of. All the usual good stuff. But until the next one, folks, thank you very much for hanging out. We'll see you on Thursday for another hobby and chill painting stream. Stay healthy, stay safe, and kill, maim, burn.